I believe we are live. If technology works, we're live. We'll find out shortly. Wow. A very warm welcome to the many, many, many viewers who are watching us today for the Final Fantasy XVI launch event, produced here and offered to you by KupoCon, the Final Fantasy fan event. I'd like to offer a quick mention and thanks to the moderators who are going to be working their way through the chat to help support us here. Apparently the audio is good, so that's a good start, and the video is good, so we're off to a good start. That's good. You know, we'll call it a day now. We don't need to do any more. That'll do.
Bye.
So exactly. Thanks for joining.
Bye,
see you for Final Fantasy 17.
22nd of June. Enjoy it. Bye.
That would be the cheapest marketing. Square would love that. You just saved us $20 million. It's brilliant. No, so before we begin talking about 16, for those of you who might not be familiar with Final Fantasy, or KupoCon, sorry, more. KupoCon is a Final Fantasy fan event. We are produced by a very small team. We do it for fun, not for profit. We're not affiliated with Square, but we thank them for producing a wonderful series of games that we're able to celebrate with you and even celebrate with you today. And here we are to talk about Final Fantasy 16. Now, before we get into it, I will say this. I want you to know that there will be no spoilers in this cast. We will talk about the demo just a little bit, but we're not going to be going into any crazy particular detail. We've also set the comments on this video. You're not able to live chat unless you've been a subscriber for 24 hours. My apologies to those of you who may be just discovering us for the first time. We've done that purposely as we don't want some nasty person to come in and drop a spoiler, because we are well aware that there are a few copies floating out there and we wouldn't want that spoiled for anyone here. So yes, let's jump in. Final Fantasy 16. I'm going to ask our guest to introduce himself. Ben, let's start with you.
Hi guys, I'm Ben Starr. I play Clive Rossfield in Final Fantasy 16. The reason you are here today.
Nina.
That's it.
Hi, I'm Nina Yndis, and I play Benedicta Harmon in Final Fantasy 16.
And last but not least, David.
Hi, I'm David Menkin. I play Barnabas Tharm, and he is Odin's dominant.
And not that I need an introduction, but my name is Alex Main. I'm the organizer of KupoCon, and it's my absolute privilege and pleasure to be here to talk with these wonderful voice actors today about a game that I think many, fans who may be familiar with the series were probably a little scared about, but we're almost there, and the hype is absolutely off the charts. Look, there's been so much happening in the last few weeks and days. I'd love to talk about all those things. But before we get into that, I think it would be really kind of cool if we learn a little bit more about you and your familiarity with the series. So, Ben, I know we've discussed this before. You were very familiar with the series. You've already raved about titles like 8 and 12, and I know you're a big fan. Nina, David, were you familiar with the series beforehand?
I've played all the games. No, I haven't actually.
I almost believed you.
I wish that I had. No, I had a very little part in Final Fantasy 14. And I had heard about the franchise before. So I'd heard about the franchise and I'd been in Final Fantasy 14. But I'm not a gamer myself. So no, I was very unfamiliar, I'd say.
And David?
Yeah, my mom wouldn't let me play games when I was little, even though that's a long time ago. But and it just stayed with me. Not that I wasn't going to allow myself to have a console until lockdown happened when I got a PS5, and thank God I got the right console for this game. But I had a small part in Shadowbringers as well. I played Magnus, the man with a lion's face who was there to make you cry. And that's how the team sort of found me and asked me to audition for 16.
I was going to say, because a lot of people behind the scenes won't know that Side in the UK record 14, and they also recorded for 16, so that's kind of cool.
Shout out to Side.
Yeah, everybody speaks really highly of them. So either they have.
I love Side. They're such a professional studio. It's such a pleasure to record there. Always. for me.
You're okay.
No, right. I do got to say this. I think even though Nina says she's not played the games, I will say both Nina and David have thrown themselves into the fandom like I've never seen. And even though you're not familiar with the franchise, I think you have taken like a duck to water with the fans, which is absolutely amazing. It's been such a great thing to watch everyone interact with the people that are so passionate about these games. And it's, as a fan myself, I love the fact that we have the opportunity to engage with people on a personal level. And Nina's just been like, both of you guys just connecting with people and creating that human contact that hopefully when they play the game, they feel like they know us a little bit more.
I mean, it's impossible. It's been impossible not to connect with everyone who plays this game. Everyone's so passionate and so nice as well. Just everyone's super nice. And it's kind of made me a fan myself. So I'm gonna play. I've ordered the game. I'm gonna play it when it comes out on the 22nd myself. So, and that will be the first video game that I actually attempt to play since like Super Mario when I was like 6 or 7 years old.
Is that the kind of games
which
you would have
also-
grown up with, like Super Mario and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I was the same as David. I wasn't allowed to play any video games. I had to play outside all the time. My mom wouldn't let me. And so I'd sneak over to my friends who had Super Mario and we'd play. So yeah, that was the extent of my experience playing video games.
I don't think kids
do have pictures
understand,
of you.
do they now? Like Mike, like I have two girls, 7 and 8, and I don't think they grasp what life was like before. You had like a wealth of iPads and video games, and it's totally
Internet.
different world. Internet,
The
exactly.
internet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was trying to
was gonna
explain to
say,
my
I do-
daughter. Oh, sorry, Ben, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just saying, I really want to say that I've got pictures of Nina playing the game for the first time, which was really cool at the press event.
You do?
Which I love.
Yeah.
And we were sitting next to each other, and I think because of all the tiny accessories that you can shove on, you were able to play it a lot easier. And I've just got these pictures of you seeing your character for the first time in game, and being like, and these like genuine reactions, and it was a really cool thing to witness. Like someone who doesn't really play video games, seeing themselves in this massive budget, huge scale. You see in the demo, like when we first meet Benedicta, it's cool.
I think
And
the
I've got
accessories
shots
will
of-
help a lot, with a lot of people who don't game. It certainly kind of, will help you out there. Ben, just so you know, your audio is a teensy bit low. If you have the ability to just come up a little bit, it's because you've got such a
How's
deep,
this?
lovingly sexy voice that you're
How is
slightly low.
this? Is this better?
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
He likes to whisper.
Yeah.
I'll get right in.
It's for the dramatic effect. If you want to hear
Okay,
more
cool.
of it, you can find it on Ben's OnlyFans.
Yeah.
So let's
But just back.
go
Sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
You go. I just wanted to comment a little bit more on the different modes of the game. So this is basically what sold me, because I just assumed I wasn't able to play it because I'm not a gamer. But then, I got to the London launch and I got to play a little bit, and I was put on the very kind of lowest mode with basically focusing on story mode. And I was able to get through, the scenes, and that just really drew me into the game, and that was what sold me to start playing it.
Yeah, it's
And I'm
good that
hoping
they've-
that will be the case with new gamers as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the accessories give you the ability to craft the game to your style of play, which I think is quite special. 'Cause similar to those who are familiar with 7 Remake, how it has this unusual active versus turn-based combat. It's a very unique system, and I hope that gamers will embrace it. I personally, when I played the demo, avoided the accessories just for the experience. I will not talk about the specifics, but the final battle in the demo was the only one that almost had me, but the rest I quite enjoyed. But look, let's turn the clocks back before we get right into the game. I know that everyone's hyped for this game, apparently, that comes out in a few days. But look, let's turn the clocks right back to what I believe was 2019, I think. When
18.
18.
18.
It was, no, David, you say this. It was 2019. That is when we started. We did start in 2019.
Are you positive?
I'm 100% positive.
I have it on
It's been
pretty
my
good
life.
authority. It was 2019, but
Well, I'm just going to keep on saying 2018.
Do you know why you...
or anybody else.
I've heard you
David was
live in the
recording
past.
for a year before
For a year,
everyone else.
just by myself.
For a year
Just
before everyone else.
monologuing. Yeah.
Well, I also
Sorry.
heard that Yoshida did say, look, we got to have David. Like before, that was the first thing that came out of his mouth. They were like, do you want to do 16? He's like, I want David. I got to have David.
Yeah. We were recording over Dave's temp track. It was like all of Clyde's lines.
So
I want to hear your revenge is a weapon.
we turn the clocks back to 2019 or 2018, depending on who you ask.
Fine.
Let's talk about the audition. So let's start with you, Nina. Do you recall the audition process, like way back when? Do you remember if they said what you were going in for? Was it very vague? 9 times out of 10, it's very vague. But can you maybe tell us that story of how we came to be?
Yeah, I remember my audition vividly. I wasn't told what game it was, and my character had been codenamed, and also the scripts were sort of similar to some of the scenes that we ended up recording, but kind of totally rewritten. So yeah, had no idea what the game was. Didn't know how big the character was either. And usually when you go into these video game auditions, what I kind of tell myself is to just be as open and giving and receptive as possible, because you don't know what to expect in the booth. And I met Koji was there, and I met some of the other developers who had come to London for the auditions. And so, it was a lovely crowd. And I immediately felt really at home and good. And I loved the scenes that they told me to read. It was a big mixture of, basically they got to experience my full range, I think, as an actor. And I kind of threw myself into it. It was super therapeutic. And this was the first audition ever that I've had. And I've had many auditions. This was the first audition ever that I ended up getting an applause. And after that, I was like, oh, wow, I feel like that went really well. I really connected with the character, whatever character that was. So yeah, I remember walking out of the audition feeling quite good about it.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
Good for you. What about you, David?
Wow.
I was brought in, just was given a code name with a buzzer that had the special code name on it outside. And I came upstairs to the legendary 5th floor of Side's old offices. And was given some lines, and they said, what we'd like you to do is show us your full emotional range when you're going through this. And they said, can you please, try with accent, maybe try to find something like a soft Scandinavian or something like that. And I went, yes, I can. And I finished. And then I went home, and then not too long after, it was pretty much around the time when Magnus was released as a character in Shadowbringers, and I posted about it online and said, I'm thrilled to say that I'm finally part of the Final Fantasy family and playing Magnus. And shit went down because they thought that I was announcing that I was playing Barnabas. So we got emails, phone calls, and everything. And that's how I found out that I got Barnabas in 16. Yeah. They were like, David, you've just broken your NDA before you even signed it. And I was like, I didn't even know I had it. And then they understood that it was for 14. Right. And then I've cut it out so that nothing confidential happens. But I got this email, and I'm going to take it away again. People are going to screenshot it, and it says, as mentioned before, confidentiality is sky high on this one. The clients wanted a select few of the cast to have access to the whole script for context. As such, please only share this with David Menkin. And I got a special password in a separate email, and I went in, and it was hundreds of pages. And that's when I figured out what I was in, because and then the adventure began.
That's very cool. I heard a similar story. I heard that you were walking down High Street, Kensington, somebody stuck a bag over your head, dragged you into a black car, started pouring water on the bag and telling you to keep your mouth shut, but similar story.
I remember seeing that script, and it was a screenplay. It was formatted exactly like a film script, and it was very, very, very cool. And yeah, it was Moss the chronicler who said the first lines, you know, like that was the thing. And I just got really excited when I saw that. And you're right, it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages long. And they were like, "You want me to read this by the first session? Are you mad?" I remember that so vividly and thinking, this is going to be such a cinematic game. Like, that's how it's written. They expect it to be in that vein. It wasn't just an Excel spreadsheet that we were reading it on. You know, it was like these are the expectations and the scope for it. That was a strange experience getting that, because I mean, it's been relatively well documented about how I got the part, but like went in for a small character who was codenamed Tristan, and I just wasn't very good at it. And then they said, you know, here's the thing, read the lines, did the sight read, it went really well. I didn't get an applause. Applause.
Neither did I.
No, but that never happens. That's not me bragging. That's just me being completely shocked.
It is a bit of a brag, Nina. It's a bit of a brag. David didn't get an applause.
Wait.
Well, David recorded a whole year earlier.
I think that was the first time I realized that, maybe I am doing something right. Maybe I should be doing this. I think it was like my realization.
I feel like
we should rename a humble brag to Benedicta brag.
A Benedicta brag, yeah.
Oh no, I don't mean to be bragging. Sorry, guys.
I think you should be very proud of that. Look, I've interviewed, must be like 100 VAs. Never have I heard of someone getting an applause at the end of an audition. So I'd be bragging. That's quite, forgive me, iconic to have that. Sorry.
I'm half embarrassed about mentioning it, but I'm also half very proud.
You should be.
Also, you're amazing in this game, Nina. So it's not like you got a round of applause and then it turns out you're not very, very good. I think the fact that in such a short period of time, what I'm so happy for is in such a short period of time, they've seen, you know, bits of this game, and they have just fallen in love with Benedicta. There was that bit at the launch event where, you know, you saw a Benedicta cosplay in the flesh, which was just like how much your performance and how much that character has resonated with the audience, which I love.
I mean, I think it's kudos to the writing. Like, I mean, everyone is amazing in this game. All the characters are so well written and they're so complex. So yeah, and you know, Benedicta, she's a powerful yet sexy woman, and she just owns it. And I think that's always going to be popular. I think that's always a good part. So I'm so glad that people connect or relate to her, or even just like her, because I'm a fan of her myself, if anything.
So if we move into the audition phase, and you know, you find out that you have these parts, and in Ben's case, went in and got more than he'd bargained, and then you know, you've had your giant round of applause, and David's been working on it a year earlier than everybody else because he's cool. You know, did you have an idea of the time frame in which this game was going to be delivered? So, you know, it's either 2018, 2019, depending on who you ask. Did you expect to be sat on this? No. Okay. So tell me about the kind of commitment that this, you know, required. Are we talking, you know, a few hours a week to begin with, or were you in, you know, hot and heavy all the time working on this game?
Who wants to go first?
Go on, Ben, you take it.
A lot. As soon as we started, I was in, because they said, I remember saying this was going to be, they said it was going to be 40 hours. That's what they said it was going to be, because that's how much they had scheduled in for, it was a miscommunication. They'd scheduled that in for the first month, and then there was going to be more and more and more and more. And when we first started, there were people who would come into the booth with me. So I would do scenes with other actors. So I did scenes with Ralph, I did scenes with Susie, I did scenes with other actors as well, because they really wanted to get that sense of camaraderie.
So you were in the booth at the same time?
Yeah.
You're the first person I've worked on the Final Fantasy series and spoke to that actually had the other actor in the booth.
Yeah. And I think it was just...
You were shirtless as well, right?
I was fully naked in the booth.
Yeah, got it.
And people would come in. No, I was not naked. I was fully clothed. And we would do these 2 to 3 hour sessions. And I'm so thankful that I got to do that with people, because Ralph and I wouldn't have had the same chemistry, I think, as Clive and Sid had we not had that kind of like in-person banter, because you don't get the reaction unless you're in person. And so the first couple of months it was really full on. And yeah, it was about 2 months, really pretty much every day. And then we took a break, came back again after another couple of months and did some stuff, and then did some more, and then COVID. And that meant that we just didn't do anything for a long, long time because of the technical requirements, which were, we were all doing it with the head cams.
Right.
Nina, we've seen your picture of it, like that was the setup. We just couldn't do that at home. Everyone had to reconfigure how they were going to make this game, and us being one of them. So we took quite a few months off before we were able to get back into the booth, and then everything changed. A lot more people were remote. We didn't have that same human contact. Stuff changed. But yeah, that was my experience. But Nina, David, what was yours?
Go for it.
David, you go.
Okay. Well, to give you an idea, the technology with the head cams changed as we worked. So that's how long we worked on it. The fact that our head cams were upgraded while working on it. That's how much time and effort they've spent on this game. And I'm allowed to say this because Koji mentioned it. It's the fact that when we get hired to work on games, they usually put a possible overrun into our session. And sometimes it's half an hour, sometimes it's an hour. And that's just in case they haven't gotten everything that they need done. But what happened is we would get into conversations about the character, and we would rewrite. I'm not saying that I would sit there and go, I want you to change things. But what would happen is that I would say, would you mind if I try it this way? I don't feel that this flows as nicely. Would you mind if we try something like that? And they would always be open to it, because especially when we were starting up, because they wanted me to be Barnabas and Barnabas to be part of me. So we had these wonderfully collaborative sessions. And as time went on, you would find that the sessions would run smoother because the writing team would actually start writing for me rather than the other way around. And that was absolutely amazing. And you really did notice that suddenly the quirks that I wanted to bring, or the quirks that I didn't even mean to bring into it, suddenly were part of the character that I was voicing. And that was kind of amazing. And it also shows the level of care that was brought in. And here's the other thing, which is mostly, I think everybody knows, but English is the originating language on this game. So therefore, we were creating the characters, and that doesn't often happen with a game that is from Japan, because I've worked on a few.
Yeah, I found that aspect super liberating. Very often you end up dubbing other languages, especially if it's Japanese games. Usually, they will record with Japanese voices first and then you dub. But this was so liberating because, we, as David is saying, we were creating the characters. For me, with the recording, even receiving that long script, I was still so oblivious. I still didn't know what I was recording for so long until very like late in the recording sessions. I think I only had a few sessions left, and Morgan, at the time who was directing us, asked me, he was like, Nina, are you familiar with that? Do you know what this game is? I was like, no, you never told me, so I didn't ask. And he told me it was Final Fantasy 16 and that I had one of the leading characters or a big part in it. And I was like, cool, okay. Still, it didn't quite, dawn on me how big this was. Yeah, and what I was going to say something else. I forgot. I kind of lost my train
Did you
of
get a round
thought.
of applause as well? Did you get a round of applause after that?
And then
Like,
Ben took his
well
clothes
done
off.
for not guessing for
Yeah.
like so
And then
long.
David got in his time machine, and that was the end of the
Yeah.
session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it.
No, but for me, I was always alone in the booth. Actually, I didn't record with any other actors.
It's because you're too good.
Well,
Didn't want to put him to shame.
No.
You know.
I think they didn't want to expose other actors to me coming in
Yeah,
that booth,
intimidating.
because that was a therapy session. I'm saying that the audition was a therapy session. You can imagine how therapeutic actually recording the whole game was. And I think it was actually a good thing that I didn't know what game it was, because I didn't feel any pressure to perform well, or, I came in and it could be any sort of game. So I didn't feel pressured to perform and do really well, which in the end, I think really helped with my performance. So I wasn't scared to fail or do silly things. Or I'm sure there's so many takes of me doing all of my scenes and lines in different ways that are just, not usable at all. But to get to what I ended up, to get to what they ended up using, I managed, or I had the space to explore, without any pressure.
So
I
correct
really
me
want
if...
to kind of.
Go on,
Sorry,
Ben.
I
No.
keep interrupting you, but
No,
I really
it's
want
fine,
to
it's
kind
the
of add to
delay.
that. Like we were given the opportunity to fail, but fail safely. And that's what I loved about this process, is that it wasn't like we have to get this number of lines an hour. It was, we need to get this right. And we spent so long. If a line wasn't working, then we would do it until it worked. And often, that could be quite a painful process. But the team was so meticulous about what they wanted, and the vision was so clear. But also, I felt over these years of making it that I have done some of the worst acting of my entire life in this game, but because they allowed me to try something, I'd say, can I try this? And we'll try it, and 50% of the time it would come off and be like, wow, this really worked. And then 50% of the time it would just be incredibly embarrassing. But I felt free enough in that process, like David was saying, to go, I'm gonna try a little bit of this on it, if that's all right. And if it was a choice that worked, they'd take it. And I think that's why, hopefully, they feel some of the honesty, because we've really brought a lot of ourselves to this process. And I can't thank everyone enough. Obviously, Koji quite rightly is getting a huge amount of the plaudits for his amazing work. John Taylor as well, who worked alongside him. And I really just want to give a shout out to Morgan Rushton, Ollie Chance, Hannah Price, 3 just titans who were there with us in that process, and their work has been tireless. And just all of those people that I mentioned, Koji and John, just spearheading this mammoth project, but also just having these people around us who have been just our rocks in our support. And I get a bit emotional, but they are not just colleagues, but they're some of my best friends. And I thank them for everything that they've done in this process for me, because they are so much a part of the fabric of this game, and what it hopefully will mean to people going forward.
So excuse me. So I think from your comments, it's quite clear that correct me if I'm wrong. This is the first Final Fantasy that was recorded for English first, I think, and everything was made for an English audience and then dubbed in Japanese. I think it is the first Final Fantasy title. And not just that, it does sound like that they had a very unique approach to this, whereas I guess if you're dubbing a Japanese pre-made title, you have to fit certain words into certain gaps, very, very meticulously, and that you have no flex on time. But here they wanted a natural delivered game and gave you the freedom to do that. And it sounds like there was a lot of collaboration, which, if the demo is anything to go by, it's very clear that the acting is very, very good. I'm going to try not to I'm trying to stay neutral, but it is a fantastic demo. It's probably the best demo I've ever played, I think. It's a roller coaster. I won't go into the spoilers, of course. Let's talk post-audition. So we then, as you mentioned, Ben, we hit a period of COVID and the world very much changed for everyone. Did you have any fears at that point that perhaps, so many games were cancelled during COVID because of that? Did you have a fear that maybe, things were going to fall apart?
No, never, because the communications were always open. The lines of communication were always open. Like, I would be talking to Koji probably every other week, and he'd be kind of giving me updates about what's going on, and we'd always, I had such a great open dialogue with the team, again, Morgan and Ollie, or we would have like weekly, sorry about that. We would have kind of weekly drinks, Zoom drinks together, and they'd give me updates about what's happening. There was always this incredible kind of like clear vision of this moving forward, and COVID probably gave people more time to focus on what they really wanted out of this project. I can't speak for the dev side of it, but there was a pause, but it was never like, this is the end.
Okay.
I've been so fortunate to have been allowed inside a little bit of that process, because I think maybe the guys trusted me to kind of keep the secrets for so long. But it really helped because it gave me time to ruminate on Clive and what I wanted out of him, and what the character to become. And I didn't really have time to breathe in those first couple of months because it was just all in. But you take some time away and you come back and you revisit it, and you revisit some of those old lines, and then you think, maybe Clive can be more like this, or my relationship with the pandemic and all the events that happened through that allow me to kind of maybe just take a new look at him, a second pass, as it were, to kind of develop forward. So that was my takeaway.
I think also, I can only speak for myself, but I think we've mentioned a couple of times, I always thought I was just going to get fired. At some point, they would realize that I was not the right guy for the job, and that it was going to be over. But the thing is that I think it's just part of a process when people are looking into the minutia of things all the time. You feel kind of like, well, why didn't I nail it on the first take? And I think taking some time off during COVID and then coming back, I think it sort of galvanized at least me. And I think it galvanized the team as well, even though they were spread around the world. My God, I want to buy Koji a new webcam so badly. He was just stuck in this little drum room with
drum room.
The drum room with like a sepia yellow, just diarrhea colored tint to it all. And he was just there, just sitting, and you would just every so often he'd just go, and then he disappeared again.
Also, kudos to them, because they were on Tokyo time.
Yeah.
So we would be doing sessions in the day, and it would be just like 1 a.m. for them, staying up and just watching these sessions. Just the dedication that this team had. I'd be like, can I come in later in the day? And Koji would be like, well, it's okay, it's the middle of the night for me, but fine, I'll just stay up, I suppose.
I haven't seen my children in months. Yeah,
it's fine. All I have is my drum kit.
Yeah.
So if we could, let's move past audition and let's move to trailers. So some time would have passed. Do you all recall the first time you found out a trailer had dropped? Did someone send you an email saying, hey, you should be aware? Usually, you know, there's, with some trailers, sometimes they'll drop the names of voice actors, sometimes they won't. Did you get any kind of heads up, or did you just kind of hear in passing and someone went, that kind of sounds like, you know, were you forewarned? Let's start with you, Nina.
I suddenly started being tagged in posts on Instagram and Twitter. I think they had, actually, I think, David, you told me that they were announcing the cast list. Or no, actually, it couldn't have been you, because we didn't know we were in the game together, actually. Someone told me that they were announcing the cast list, and I didn't think that much of it. I was like, cool, yeah, whatever. And then suddenly people started tagging me when the first trailers dropped, and for the first time I got to see some of my scenes. And I was like, oh, whoa, everyone's reacting, like the whole internet is exploding with this. And so that was the first time it dawned on me how big a community Final Fantasy has and how popular the game was. I was quite green up until then. I didn't realize that it would blow up to this extent. You know, I never dreamed of that I would go to launches of this game.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's never happened to me with previous games. They kind of come out. Sometimes I don't even know what game it is, and the game comes out and someone says, oh, I heard your voice in this.
But as you said, that
like,
probably
which game
helped
was
your
that?
performance, right? Because you weren't thinking of the magnitude of it. You were focused on the part rather than the, you know, what was coming next.
Well, 100%, yeah. I'm so actually glad that they never told me what this was for and what magnitude this game had, because I would just be stressed about that, I think. But yeah, then the trailers dropped and I was like, whoa, this is cool. And since then, I've been following every single trailer, every single thing that's been dropping about the game, and that's how I kind of grew and became a fan.
What about you, David?
Well, I mean, as soon as I heard, who are we? What are the dominants? I was like, I didn't get fired.
Yeah.
Then you got your round of applause.
Yeah, I gave myself a round of applause, exactly.
you.
But I have to say that seeing it all come together, because I'm sorry, I'm an actor, I'm selfish. I think about me. I think about what I'm doing and what I'm working on. And then suddenly you see the music and the graphics and what the engine has done to bring this all together. You see what's happening, and you start reading the comments, and you start understanding that there is hype growing about this game. There is nothing like it. And there's also nothing like the fact that you know that because at the end of those things, usually you see a date and you go, oh, Jesus Christ, I've got to wait how long to be able to talk about this? But then we were so lucky that at the end of the Game Awards, some of us were named, which is really unusual and really lovely of Square Enix.
Ben.
I would like. So I knew when we were doing the Awakening trailer at the showcase, and I remember watching it alongside some people, and we were kind of WhatsApping alongside being, this is cool. But I wasn't allowed to talk about it, obviously. And I remember getting an email from Koji the day after the Awakening trailer, and he went, there is still a gun pointed at your head, Ben. You cannot talk about this. because the team had let me in so much to this process, and they knew I was such a Final Fantasy nerd. They were so welcoming, but also there's going to be a nervousness that I'm going to ruin it for everyone and shoot my mouth off and say the wrong thing, which I understand. And I remember we knew that we were going to get announced after the Game Awards. David is the person who told me that we were able to do it because I went up on the PlayStation blog. I think the Japanese voices had been announced, but we hadn't yet because the English site had gone down, I think. And so yeah, then it was finally updated, and we could talk about it. And I felt so nervous because it was an absolute coming out party, right? It was saying, "Hey guys, I'm the new protagonist in that game series that you love. I hope I don't screw it up." And you just don't know how people are going to react at all. And I love the Revenge trailer. The nicest thing was the guy, Mike, who actually who cut the trailer, messaged me when it came out. He was so enthusiastic. He also just cut the Ascension trailer as well that went out after the event, the really kind of like bombastic one. And I gave him a big hug at the launch event because I was like, Mike, the Revenge trailer, you basically changed my life. I will be saying "come to me, Efreet" at every single convention until my end of days because of you.
It's an iconic line.
Like but it wasn't when we recorded it.
Yeah, but it is now.
It wasn't. Yeah, and he put it in. It was his cut, right? He could have taken any of the lines from the game, and he chose that line. Clive says a lot of epic lines in this game, but he chose that one. And
but certain
because
things
of
stick.
Mike's,
And it's the same with Adam Crowsdale and Yndis. He didn't know the line, I've come up with a new recipe. He had no idea that was going to stick until one day he's walking around a supermarket and he hears someone say it, But it did stick. I mean, the first time I met you, which I think was like 6 months ago, when we were at the bar, I had the urge to be like, "Come to me, Strongbow." Like it's like it sticks. What a great catchphrase though. It could have been much worse. It's a really, really solid one.
Yeah. The problem is the volume at which people want me to say it.
Yeah.
I have said it once. But not. Sean, who is on who's on the Square Enix, he's the tech whiz, does all the social content. He's absolutely amazing, like cameraman, editor extraordinaire for Square Enix. He asked me to do it in the event, and I did it. Even with like the worst throat in my life, I couldn't really talk, and I went, "Sean, for you, anything," and I did it, and immediately regretted it. I just thought, I cannot be saying this every 5 minutes, so maybe I'll do it like once a convention.
We'll just get like a little button. People can buy greetings cards that when they open it, they just get the recording.
At KupoCon this year, I will not be doing it for every single person, but maybe I'll do it on stage.
Just once on stage.
Yeah.
Just charge 50 quid a pop. You can buy yourself a little, little mansion.
Yeah, maybe.
They're coming to a convention near you.
Yeah.
So we have the reaction from the Final Fantasy audience. Now, Final Fantasy is a unique series, whereas those who may be not familiar, you don't have to play every game. You can play one or two, and they do have, familiar creatures and styles. The music is always phenomenal, We talk about Soken in this and the wonderful teams that work behind the scenes to create what is breathtaking music, absolutely breathtaking. There's some of the best people work on Final Fantasy when it comes to music. Nobu, for example. We have this game that comes along. Now, not every game in the series has had instant hit. When 10 came out in 2001, I think it was, they said the voice acting was terrible. Well, we're 22 years later, and that game has a legacy now. They made a stage production of it in Japan. The voice actor's coming to our convention in London in a few months, 22 years later. After some guy said, "No, this is shit." And then you've got games like 14 that got off to a rocky start, and then the god Yoshida comes in and is able to recreate the game in a way that makes it the best-selling Final Fantasy ever. It's made more money for Square than you can possibly imagine. You have games like 15, which would have been the introduction for a whole generation to Final Fantasy fans, which had its rocky moments, but generally delivered a very heavy story-driven game. Unfortunately, was let down by DLC and kind of being broken into sections, but still a fantastic game. So there was a lot of pressure on this title. So can we talk about the pressure? Can we talk about where we're at now? We'll talk about the event and all that's happened in the last week shortly, but tell me, once your name had dropped, once the whirlwind begins, do you feel the pressure coming in? Let's start with you, Ben, because I think for you this is quite extreme, Do you remember we had a conversation? I forget if it was in the taxi or if it was at the bar, and at the time it hadn't been released yet, but you were just about to be in You on Netflix, and you were saying, I think that's going to be a big hit. and you said that you thought maybe that would be a bigger hit than, you know, the voice acting in 16 because, you know, everybody watches Netflix.
Yeah.
And I looked you dead in the face and I said, it's not going to happen. This is like literally going to forever change your life. And, you know, how are you feeling? Like, was the, you know, the name drop, did it change everything? The mass change in social media, you know, the you almost, you know, like I nicknamed you Jesus recently, you know, everything has changed, you know. How are you feeling?
It has, but it hasn't been immediate. It's been quite gradual. You know, I was announced as this character, and then quite a few people started following me, which was great. You know, I was able to have this interaction with a lot of fans, people who were interested in knowing that I was in this game, were interested, and then they'd get in contact. And there was a lot of like hardcore Final Fantasy fans cared. And it's been a slow process, I think. And because of that, I've maybe able to kind of come to terms with it. But now, the week leading up, with everything that's happened over the past week, meeting so many people, thinking about this release, people getting their hands on it, and actually getting to play Clive's story and what he goes through, at least in those opening hours, let alone the rest of the game. Oh boy, it is so it's so overwhelming how amazing everyone has been, and I don't need people to like this game, you know, but the fact that people do and are responding to the work that we've all done, it's so immense, and I'm so unbelievably grateful that people have kind of taken Clive, who could be seen as this brooding edgelord, into their hearts, and they maybe understand some of his pain. And I did joke, like I can't possibly think that I have probably like I project this idea of being like fun and lovely, but everyone has like low self-esteem, right?
You're probably trying to control it in your head by going, no, it's just probably, you know, it's not going to be.
It's nothing, right? I can't possibly comprehend where I was and where I am now, and then maybe where we're going to be when people actually play this game, because that would be a level of arrogance that I unfortunately don't possess, because I can't think about that, because I naturally go to, well, they're probably not going to like me, it's fine, you know, and I'll just accept that, it's fine. I'm rubbish. I'll just go over here. It's as you can tell, I'm kind of like trying to find my words, because I can't really articulate how I feel. But yeah, thank you to everyone who's reached out or said that what they played has moved them and changed them in ways that they didn't expect. And that's all we can hope for. And there's so much more to play for people, and there's so much more of Clive's journey. There's so much more of,
like, I mean, I don't like to give you too many compliments, because you'll save them and use them in the future. But I have to say, the last like 3 minutes of the demo was, honest to God, like, I'm not just saying this, Ben, it was probably the finest voice acting I've ever heard. Like, it was like you were sat in your chair and you were just like, wow, like it was so good. Like,
thank you.
It really, and I'm sure it must be in the millions of people that played that demo. It is phenomenal. There must be so many people, and I see tweets and people like, it's probably not for me. The trailers didn't sell it to me. You know, a trailer's a trailer. They're designed with a certain aspect in mind. Go play the game, try it, because my God, they delivered.
And
anyway,
I really want to add, like, you know, thank you for saying those things, but you know, you haven't quite played it yet. But again, the work that David and Nina do in this game, like every single person in this game is bringing their A game. There is no compromises, and because of the template that we were allowed to kind of exist in, we were allowed that freedom to go to places that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And I've seen the work that these two actors have done, because I've had been in the fortunate position to act alongside them. And it's those scenes where you're acting alongside people, not only who you respect, but you look up to, who make you want to be better. And some of the stuff that you guys have done is is amazing, and I can't wait for people to get their hands on that, those really deep emotional things, because every single character is given a deep emotional core that they get to explore.
You were quite lucky in the demo. I mean, you had a lot of screen time.
That kind of comes for free. But
Such an attention seeker. But I'm sure once the game is released, we'll get to see some fantastic. Like you said, it's a AAA cast. It really is like phenomenal casting. I actually would like to touch on a little casting moment. When we talk about the pre-launch event, something that Koji said that I thought was, he said to Ralph, which I'm going to share, and I hope you won't mind. So, we talk about the reaction from the fans, but, I'm sure, as Ben has mentioned, it was kind of, and then the last couple of weeks has just been like, whoosh, 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds. Can we talk about this week that's gone by? You were all in Los Angeles. Before that, you did the press tour in London. Just tell me about these experiences. David, what's it been like for you the last, 7 to 10 days?
Well, first of all, I have to mention that Ben, I don't think Square Enix knew what an ambassador they hired. I've never seen engagement like this. I've worked in this industry for quite a few years, and it has been energizing and a little bit intimidating to see what Ben has done and how much he's given of himself. He is a husk of a man, but the thing is, at the same time, he's ready for more. I see it in his eyes, because he has been working his ass off. Because he believes in it. I'm speaking for you as if you're not here, but it's been absolutely wonderful to see. And I gotta say, we've been riding his coattails. We have just been along for the ride. This has been the Ben show in the best way possible. And the fact that you are so generous with it all has meant that at the same time, we arrived on Friday and went to a dinner with everyone at Square Enix, and Ben pulled me aside, checked that I was doing all right, and then just started moving me through and introducing me to everybody. And that's how it's been. Ben took us to this amazing influencer drinks event where we were meeting people who have between 300,000 and 1 million followers, and couldn't understand why they were so lucky to be there. And there we were, just going, cool, all right, we're along for it. It has been an absolute roller coaster, and it has been so lovely. It has been one of the loveliest fandoms I have come across ever. I've been in a few, and I'm not going to shit on anyone that I've ever worked for, but this just hits different. Mm-hmm. It just does.
The Final Fantasy crew is very, very friendly. Like, if you ever come to a Kupo, you never have any issues. You never have people squabbling. It's just that generally the community is very warm, very friendly. Why? I don't know.
Nina, like tea. Will you talk, please? Sorry.
Go. Well, I second everything that David just said there. I was quite intimidated by when I realized how big this series was. And Ben, you've just been so welcoming and so helpful with everything. Coming into this as a non-gamer, I did feel the pressure. I was like, how are people going to react to me? I'm not a gamer myself. How do I even speak to people about this? And before the London launch, I was quite nervous, and also the LA launch. And yeah, you would just take the time to have a phone conversation with me about things and, explain things. And it just literally made me feel so much safer going into all of this. And also, as David was saying, the whole community is so welcoming, and everyone's incredibly lovely. I know my character, she can be quite ferocious with things that she says. She's got a thing with Torgal. I know loads of people are, love Torgal. Don't get me wrong, I like dogs. But, I've kind of played along with her swearing at Torgal and stuff. And it's the comments that I get, they're not even mean. They're like, oh, Nina, we like you as Benedicta, but please be kind to Torgal. It's, I'm not getting any, dog hater kind of thing. I was
just
expecting
go back and rewrite the
maybe...
games. They'd be like, yeah, I need to be a little nicer to the dog. Is that possible? Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I was expecting maybe some people would.
Well, I appreciate that people can tell the
challenge me.
difference between, game and reality, because sometimes that is a messy line for some people. So
That is true. That is also true. No, but everyone's been super welcoming and super just positive, and it's been the most
great.
amazing experience.
And for the rest of your life, people are going to ask for you to step on them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I still haven't stepped on anyone, so I need to practice.
Yeah. Get those heels out. Can I just say this week has been such a huge, the past week has been such a huge whirlwind, and like David, Nina, Ralph and I have literally just been shipped around LA from place to place to place, do this, say this. But again, shout out to Frankie and Nidhi from Square Enix. Those two women have just they have been just such amazing carers essentially for us in this process, because this is the first time that we've got to meet real fans. That event, there were nearly 1,500 people there. And you saw the pictures of it. It was massive. The scale was huge, and they were so amazing at ushering us around, because we were kind of being stopped every 30 seconds because people want to talk to us, and we want to give people that time. But they were so good at taking us from place to place, allowing us that time to interact with fans, taking us where we needed to be, picking us up, like consoling us when we weren't feeling good or feeling down, getting everything we needed.
You didn't stop. Like you were constantly moving.
Yeah, it was always on the move. It was like go, go, go. We were doing. I tried to speak to as many people as possible. So if you were there and I didn't get to speak to, I'm really, really sorry. But yeah, Alex, I purposely avoided you. Apparently,
it's okay. I'm gonna have you killed.
But there were so many people there who I didn't get to see, who I would have wanted to, but because it was just such a busy event. But hopefully further down the line, come and say hi if you see me, because I love the fact that, fans can have that kind of connection with their characters. And I understand how important that is to meet those characters, because I'd want that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, even if it's 30 seconds, I will happily say hi.
Well, when I saw David and Nina, they were up on the little stage, and I was like, oh, they're probably going to be busy, so I'm just going to, go up behind, like, kind of tug on David's leg and be like, David. I felt like a peasant in like a, I should have had like rotten vegetables or something, getting ready to throw it at the royalty kind of thing. But yeah, it was a very busy event. It was very fast moving. Congrats to the team there. Visually, it was stunning. All the lighting effects and the large screens and the pyrotechnics at the end were not expected. It was an interesting experience and well worth it. I wanted to actually touch on something that happened after the event, if I could, because I'll just forget to mention it. And I thought it was a really kind of special moment. After you rudely ignored me all day, you invited me for a drink, and I came down, and I won't talk about my first meeting with Koji because I think it's going to haunt me for the rest of my life. But when I was sat down with him, he was talking to Ralph, and he said to Ralph, your audition. This was Koji talking to Ralph. He said, your audition was just amazing. He said, as soon as I heard it, I was like, we've got to have Ralph. So supposedly he said that he went around all the developers, all the teams, and went, yeah, listen to this audition. It's perfect, isn't it? This is the guy. So he was like going around campaigning for Ralph because it had to be Ralph. And you have to give Ralph credit. It's a really unique voice. He from just what we've saw, he delivers amazingly. He's already a well-known actor. As soon as I heard the voice, I knew who it was, And Ralph is such a down-to-earth guy, but to see Koji kind of, say, this is the guy, and to see how involved he was. Because, a lot of the time when I interview and talk to people who are involved in video games, you think that there's 101 subordinates below them that are really doing the legwork, but it was very instantly clear to me that Koji has put his sweat and blood into this title, that there weren't, maybe there are 100 people below him, but it didn't matter. He was still giving it everything. So that was a really nice moment to experience. But yeah, I can only imagine what you three have experienced this past week, all the fans that you've spoke to. And this is pre-launch, we're not even there yet.
Yeah,
before the demo came out.
I mentioned one thing about him, because when he found out that Sid appears through the Final Fantasy universe and stuff, he was standing up pretty much exactly where we met you, and he went, "Well, I better not be the shit Sid."
Yeah,
I think he's going to be a badass Sid, to be fair.
And
actually, Ben, he spoke very highly of you, and I'm not sure if he said this to you, but I'll tell you what he said. We were sat, and I said to him, this is quite special, and I said to him, I was a little bit starstruck when I met Ralph, because he's in everything. And he said that, he's worked on a lot of stuff. And he said that he really enjoys voice acting when the narrative and story is this good. And he hopes that future jobs have this kind of quality. Because I mentioned, do you know any of the actors before? And have you met Ben before? And he said that just the connection between the cast and the deliverance of the lines, it was perfect. And he basically said, I would kill for projects like this in the future. So for him to say that, I think says something about the caliber of game coming.
Yeah. Also, shout out to Susanna Fielding.
We did invite both Ralph and Susanna. They unfortunately couldn't make it today. I wouldn't want people to think that we said, cast them into the abyss, but unfortunately they couldn't make it.
Yeah. But Susanna, as much as some of my favorite scenes with Sid, most of my favorite scenes in this game are with Jill. And I just loved every second of working with her. And I think she's just such a mercurial talent, and brings such clarity and honesty to Jill, which I really like. And she just has that ability to kind of like mine that emotion so easily. And through everything that Jill goes through in this game, I think that Susanna does such an amazing job, and she's a wonderful human being. And again, another person who I got to I gave her my Sky login at one point because we were in the session and she hadn't watched Big Little Lies, I think it was at the time. And I was like, "You've got to watch Big Little Lies." So I just gave her my Sky login to watch it, and she just kept giving me updates. But this is so good. So
this is when Sky kill her account terms and conditions. It just suddenly dies.
Yeah, I cancelled my account. Don't worry about it. They can't get me. They're dead to me now. But yeah, that having those like human connections with people and sharing experiences outside of just doing the game and people becoming genuine friends has been such an amazing experience.
Nice. So we don't have too much time left, so I just want to touch on a couple of things. We've talked about the pre-launch event. We've talked about where we are now. Let's talk about where we're going to be on June 22nd. We are just days away from, a major video game launch. The money that Square have put into this launch must be absolutely crazy. It's on buses, it's on walls. I was on holiday in the Bahamas, and we took a ferry over from Miami, and I was in a GameStop in Miami, and there's Ben on the TV, and it's like, it's everywhere. Everywhere you look, it is, this game is everywhere, and we're just days away from that. If you had an opportunity to speak to a fan, or maybe someone who's not familiar with the game series, what would you say to them to encourage them to give this a shot? If you just had like 60 seconds to deliver why they should try this game, what would you say? Let's start with Nina.
So I would say, as a new gamer myself, it's an incredible script. The characters are so well written. They're so complex and deep. Every character is unique and has its own story. And Valisthea is so vast and interesting to explore. It's like diving into a completely new world, and it's really worth it. So, yeah, I think I'd say that.
Ben?
The campaign's already out. Start with 16. You don't need to know anything. This is an entirely new story. Get in there. Ignore the 16. Imagine it. Just imagine if this is the Final Fantasy. You don't need to know anything. It's fun action gameplay, but mostly it's a human story told on a massive scale. It's like all the great fantasy stories that you've ever read, but you've never read this one. And the performances are amazing. The combat's super, super fun. I've loved everyone's reactions to the demos because people who've never played these games want to play them for the first time because this is new, it is fresh, it is modern, but it still appreciates and built on the legacy of all the games that have come before. So if you're a first timer or not, it's going to be a real ride.
And David?
I touched on this on the Square Enix stream, but the thing is, what we know and what we've seen is that this isn't actually about us. It's not about us flying to LA and doing these meeting people and stuff like that. This is about the players. This is about making sure as many people as possible understand how much love and care has gone into this game, and it's only because they want to create the game that people play this year. That's all that matters. And we're trying to get the word out as much as possible because we understand it as well now. Ben probably knew it from the first moment he stepped into the booth. I had to tell the truth. I was just doing a game until the trailers started dropping, until we started talking about what this game was. It's not about us. It is about the gamer. It is about them living in a world for hours upon hours and getting to fall in love with some characters that are very, very special. This is a labor of love, and now hopefully the players are going to love it just as much.
You've kind of touched on a very good point there, and it's something I've mentioned before, and it kind of leads me into my last topic, which is legacy. When we watch a movie, we spend 2 hours or maybe 3. If you're watching Avatar, maybe 4. But you get a very limited amount of time to connect your characters with the audience, and then they're gone. A video game, which, as you both mentioned, Nina and David, that as kids you weren't really allowed to play video games. These days, everyone plays video games. My grandfather introduced me to my first video games on the Amiga. Things like Simon the Sorcerer, Monkey Island, Valhalla, all these wonderful little basic games. But now we have generations of families playing. I play with my kids. They'll probably play with their kids while I'm in some elderly home having somebody wipe my backside, and I'll still be playing. Video games is for everyone now, whereas it used to just be for children. And the time that you have to connect with those characters is not 2 or 3 hours. It's 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 on a much deeper level. And something that I think you're going to see I know you're going to see and I'm sure maybe in other jobs you've experienced this, but I think especially in a series as story-driven and as rich as Final Fantasy, is you're going to come across fans who are going to connect with this game on a level that you cannot possibly imagine. So these days, unfortunately, due to things like COVID, there are many people out there who are suffering with things like depression, and even in worst case scenarios, things like suicide. And then you're going to come across people who are going to use this game as a lifeline. They're going to use it as a source of escape, a source of hope. And that impact on someone is going to be huge. And I think that's what I would hope from this game from a legacy perspective. As a kid growing up, I played Final Fantasy VIII, which is a great game. Not loved by everybody, but it's a great game. And it helped me escape from, some shitty moments in my childhood. And I think that we're going to see many young adults. Obviously this game is maturated, but young adults, 18, 19, going into this game, and it could save them from a very dark place. And hopefully this story will teach them a few life lessons, clearly to put the blade down, of course. But hopefully they'll be able to connect to those characters. Tell me about the legacy of where we're going. Ben, as a gamer yourself, as someone who has played Final Fantasy as a kid and grown up with it, and I know that you're a big fan of the series, to voice act the main character. Where do you hope the legacy of this game goes in, say, 20 years?
I hope people think it's a good game. I mean, that's all I can hope for at this point. I think if I think anything else, it might overwhelm me. I would love it. I would love it to change one person's life, because Final Fantasy VIII changed mine, and it put my life on a completely different trajectory. And I experienced media in films, TVs, books were all influenced by my love for Final Fantasy. So if it's just one person, that's great. Like, to think of the scale of the types of people that it could affect is kind of overwhelming. So I just kind of think of like little Ben when he's 11 years old, playing Final Fantasy for the first time. And obviously this is an M-rated game, so 11-year-old Ben isn't going to be playing this one legally. But I really hope that Yoshi P said this is a game for people who've grown up, and we're dealing with some very, very mature themes, not just blood and violence. We're dealing with deep stuff. We're dealing with PTSD, depression, acceptance, love, hate. And we're dealing with it in very mature ways. We're taking our time with it. We're looking to examine it in ways that maybe it hasn't been examined before in this series. And if people can better comprehend their own world by playing this game, then that's us doing our job. I've already had people message me, having played the demo, talk about their own experiences. I've had people message me, talk about my experiences, which I have spoken about recently with this game, and people feel seen and they feel heard. And I think these are topics that we should be able to talk about without fear of being ridiculed. And these games provide that platform for us. So I really hope that's what I hope for. I don't care about the other stuff. I care about how it's going to affect individuals. And that means the world.
Nina, David, do you have anything to add?
I don't really know what else to add after what Ben just said there. I mean, yeah, I think one thing, which I mentioned earlier, every single character, no matter whether they're a protagonist or an antagonist, every single character has such a rich history, and they become the way that they have become from previous experiences. And I think that comes across really beautifully in this game. And I think often, both in, I think, film and TV and games, antagonists can be portrayed as quite two-dimensional. But I think here, every single character is so fully developed. And it might create more empathy, potentially. Just experiencing different characters' truths. That was my little extra thought, but I think everything that Ben just said, I echo that.
Thank you.
It's not up to us to create a classic. That's not what our jobs are. Our jobs are to create the best thing possible, and that is, everyone who's been involved in this project has worked their asses off in order to create something that we can be proud of. That's all we can do. It's now it's down to timing, luck, and also recognition by the fans to see what they think of this game. None of our business. It isn't. It's now up to the players to decide what they want this game to do for them going forward.
Thank you. I think it's interesting that when you think about the individual, which I think Ben said he's trying to think about the one. Maybe if it just reaches one person, that's enough, isn't it? Really, if you think you reach one person and you could change the outlook of their life in a positive way, that's worth the hundreds of millions that you spend on a game to interact, to impact someone like that. And I do hope that, in the years that follow, that you have an opportunity to meet more fans on a more casual basis, where it's a little less, in the hype of the moment. Hopefully that you can all come and experience a KupoCon in the future and have those moments with fans, because I've seen some moments that have truly shaped a voice actor's opinion, life even, just in a few moments, just by hearing a fan say something incredibly delicate that has such an impact on them. I think that's really spectacular. So thank you for delivering this game, for bringing your best performance. I am usually one to stay middle field and say, not say if it's going to be great or if it's going to be bad or whatever. I have a very good feeling about this game. It's like all the stars aligned for this one. Everything is just seeming like it's going to be one of those games that will have a legacy, and hopefully we can get the whole cast together for a 1-year anniversary and we can have some fun with the lines like we did with the remake. Unfortunately, most of the cast haven't been announced yet, so we can't really do anything with them. But who knows, 20 years from now you might be getting invited to an event for the 20-year anniversary or whatever, right? So it's quite special. But I hope the next week is mind-blowing for you, and I hope that the fan feedback is just I'm very hopeful. And I appreciate you taking the time to be here. I know, Ben, I think you're flying home tomorrow. David, I think you're flying home shortly. And
I'm going to the airport now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Nina, I know that you've been on the ground for not enough hours. And I apologize for myself. I actually am suffering with a horrible throat infection right now, so that's why I keep clearing my throat all the time. But it's been great to share this time with you and talk about the game. So I'd like to sign off from our viewers here, and I'll say goodbye to the guests in just a second. But thank you to the thousands of people who've watched this, and to those of you who are going to be watching it after the fact. If you would like to support what KupoCon does, we don't run ads on our YouTube videos. We don't make much money, and we certainly don't look for your money. But if you choose to support what we do, you can purchase some cool stuff over at kupo.shop, or you can support us on Patreon, which is patreon.com/KupoCon. We did have some funky things made for the launch. I don't know how well is my camera going to play ball. We had a 16 coin made to celebrate, and we also had. I actually sent Ben one of these. We had a t-shirt made, which is kind of cool. Put it up the right way. It obviously iconic phrase. And actually, this might be my favorite thing. These have been very popular. This is the desk mat. We hired an artist for this one. So anyway, folks, we really appreciate the support you give us. Thank you for watching this. And roll on 16, June 22nd. As I said, I'm going to say goodbye to the guests now, but thank you so much for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. Guests, if you want to say your goodbyes, now is the time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.